Mother's Day started quietly that year. The house felt oddly peaceful, the way it sometimes does when everyone is awake but moving softly around each other. Sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, catching the dust in the air while I stood at the counter with a cup of coffee I had already forgotten to drink. 6 months. That was how long it had been since my oldest daughter, Lena, stopped speaking to me. No argument. No dramatic exit. Just silence that appeared one day and stayed. At first, I thought it was stress. She had always been private, someone who carried problems alone. But after the second month passed without a call, a message, even a short reply, the silence started to feel intentional. I had asked my younger daughter, Maya, several times if she knew what was going on. She always said the same thing. She's just dealing with stuff. It never sounded convincing. That morning, Maya walked in from the front porch holding a small brown package. "Mom," she said, placing it on the kitchen table. My chest tightened the moment I saw the handwriting. Lena's. I hadn't realized how familiar it still was to me until that moment. Slanted slightly to the right, careful but rushed in places. There was no return address. Just my name. Mother's Day. Of course, I stared at the box longer than I expected to. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a thick book, wrapped neatly with brown packing tape. No card taped to the outside. No note. Just the package. Maya watched me carefully from the other side of the table. "You going to open it?" she asked. I tried to sound casual. "I guess," but my hands moved slower than usual as I pulled the package closer. The cardboard felt stiff, almost overly reinforced. For a moment I just rested my palm on it. 6 months of silence. And now this. I slid a finger under the edge of the tape. "Oh,
Don Toa Yushai."
Maya's voice cracked so suddenly it made my hand jerk away. I looked up, startled. "What?" She had stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the side of the box. "Mom," she said again, quieter but urgent. "Don't open it." "Why?" She pointed. "Don't you see?" I followed her finger. At first, I didn't understand what she meant. Then I noticed the label. Not the handwritten name. The printed one. A shipping label partially peeled away near the corner. Under it was another label that had been covered up. And beneath that, barely visible but unmistakable, was a small red marking printed directly on the cardboard. Not decorative. Not random. A hazardous material indicator. It looked old, like the box had been reused from something else. But the moment I saw it, a cold sensation ran down my back. I looked closer. The tape. There was too much of it. Layered in several directions, almost as if someone had sealed the box again after it had already been opened. "Maya," I said slowly. She was already pulling out her phone. "I'm calling the police." "Wait," I said automatically. But she was already dialing. Neither of us touched the box again. Those 10 minutes felt longer than the entire morning before it. We sat across from each other at the table, staring at the package like it might explain itself if we looked long enough. And in that silence, memories began resurfacing. The last real conversation I had with Lena. She had sounded tense. "Mom, if something strange happens, don't ignore it." I remember laughing lightly. Strange how? "Just promise me." I never took it seriously. At the time it sounded like one of her anxious spirals. She had always been cautious, sometimes overly so. I had told her she worried too much. That was the last real conversation we had before the silence began. When the police cars arrived, the sound of tires on gravel felt strangely loud. 2 officers approached the house. Maya opened the door before they could knock. They entered calmly, professionally, asking us both to step away from the table. One officer crouched near the package while the other asked a few quiet questions. Who sent it? When it arrived? Whether it had been opened? Their movements were slow and careful, the kind of deliberate caution that makes a situation feel more serious without anyone saying it out loud. The officer examining the box leaned closer. Then he looked at his partner. "We're going to call this in." His tone shifted slightly, still calm, but firmer. Within 20 minutes, the house was no longer quiet. More vehicles arrived. A containment team carefully removed the package and sealed it inside a protective container. No one told us much, only that it needed to be examined somewhere else. Before they left, one of the officers turned to me. "Did your daughter say anything about sending this?" I hesitated. Then I remembered something else. 3 weeks before the silence started, Lena had been helping a coworker deal with a harassment situation involving a former employee at their company. She had mentioned it casually one night, said the situation had gotten uncomfortable, said someone involved had been making threats online. At the time, I brushed it off as workplace drama. The officer nodded slowly when I mentioned it. "We may be able to trace where the package actually came from." After they left, the house felt emptier than before. Maya sat at the table again, rubbing her hands together. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown number." I answered carefully. "Hello." There was a pause, then Lena's voice. "Tired. I heard the police came." My chest tightened. Another pause. "I suspected someone might try something." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked quietly. "I didn't want you involved." Her voice carried something heavy beneath it. "I thought if I stayed quiet, they'd stop paying attention." Suddenly the 6 months of silence rearranged themselves in my mind. Not distance. Containment. Protection. "I'm sorry," I said after a moment, "for thinking you left." On the other end of the line, she exhaled slowly. "I never left, Mom." Outside, the street was quiet again, but the silence felt different now. Not empty, just unfinished.